So you guys haven't heard from me much lately. I've been, I guess you could call it long service leave. I've just been chilling. Not a lot of bike time. Still a little bit here and there, but really not pushing it and really not sending. Uh, not riding like my usual self, I guess. Quite the holiday. I kind of found my feet again and been punching runs. A good friend of mine's got me back out on the shuttle kind of routine and just loving it. So I figured I better give you guys an update on what I like, what I don't like, how everything's going. Little bit of an overview of the bike after having it for a year. So it's been pretty much exactly a year now. I got it in February last year. These Nukeproof wheels. Nukeproof have just gone out of business or into administration, or maybe they're just changing things up or whatever. But Nukeproof is no longer here in Australia. We can't get anything. There's nothing. But let me tell you, this Nukeproof Horizon V2, I believe it is, wheel set, it's so good. It is so reliable. I haven't had a peep from the rear. The hub has got good engagement. I think it's maybe 72 engagement or something. It's around the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, I think. So great engagement, not too high in order to cause, more pedal kickback than you want and whatever. That's a deep dive that you could go into as well. High engagement, a lot of people believe can have a negative impact on your suspension performance. So adequate engagement for climbing and ratcheting over technical bits and pieces. But just reliability and durability. The back wheel's still straight. Somehow, this back wheel, I'll pull it out and I'll show you. Let's give it a spin. I'm in a bit of a twist here. Here we go. So check this out. See if we can get a focus on it. I have to move the chair. There we go. Like a little bit of a hop, but straight as an arrow still. Double down casing, so double down casing's known for the old Maxxi's wobble. Whoops. And when Maxxi's wobbling on most of the tyres I've gotten from Maxxi's lately, all the double downs, but no real wobble on that. And the rim's straight. The rim is straight, so very impressed with that. Shout out Nukeproof or the guys who've designed it. I actually think that so the hub is a Spank. The hub is a Spank Hex hub, rebranded, but I'm not sure what the rims are. Whatever they are, they're strong. The front wheel feels killer. There's still compliance. So compared to the Fun Phantom wheel I put on the front, was a bit harsh, which I had on the Banshee briefly. When I put the Banshee wheels on this, it made the bike feel harsh. When I put these wheels on this, it made the bike feel a little bit more sprightly than the standard Giant wheels, but not really harsh. So they've just been reliable, taken a heap of hits. I'm not pinch flattening tyres. I'm not doing nothing. It's just reliable, disappears into the back. So Nukeproof Horizon, if you can get a deal on them somewhere, where you are in the world or whatever, absolutely. I paid $600 for the pair, but it's just killer. Might have even been a bit cheaper. It was around the $600 mark. So a better rim, a more reliable rim than the EX511 as well. I've dented and flat spotted a heap of EX511, and I've done nothing to either of these rims. And the front ones had a few bashes. I've front flatted before on a big hit. They've been killer. The this rear shock, the more I ride it, the more I love it. I've got the Vivid Air as well here. Not as big a fan of the Vivid Air as this shock, definitely not. Not as big a fan of any air shock than a Coil, but that Vivid Air does do work. I'm going to put it back on and really spend some time, but it's just so hard to go off of this back to a shock where I'm going to be fiddling and whatever. It's just so reliable. The bottom out resistance, I've just got one click of bottom out, which is perfect for this bike and this frame and the way I've got the suspension platform set up. What I will say is I believe this has got a higher leverage rate to start with. So the leverage rates, you've got A lot of bikes will start at 2.8 to 1 and then come down to 2 to 1 or 2.1 to 1. And then the difference between there is your percentage of progression. This bike is probably closer to 3 to 1 or maybe even 3 something to 3.1 to 1, something like that. These high leverage rate, the Banshee was even higher. The Rune was even higher. The Titan, not so much, I don't think, but the Rune really high. And what it does is it creates a lot of resistance at the start of the suspension stroke. So it's really, really hard to get it supple off the top without being too soggy down the bottom. So with this, I've gone a 300-pound progressive spring. 300 standard RockShox springs, too soft. It gives me the right feeling I'm looking for off the top, but just a little bit too easy to clap. Can probably make it work with this bottom out. This 300, it's an MRP spring, 300 progressive. It's probably progressive to a 320. It says it's a 300 to 388, which is garbage. It's definitely not. It's probably a 320. It's probably got the finish of a 325 spring, or I've got a 320 Olin spring that I've tried on my other shock on this bike versus this spring, and pretty well the same. It's just the 320 is a little harsher off the top. Most bike, like my Slash, I was a 350 to 375, and that had, the starting leverage rate is more like a 2.8 or a 2.9 to 1 down to a 2 to 1 or whatever. So I think these high, 3 plus, 3 to 1 or higher gives you a harsher starting feel. So it's harsher off the top for how much support you got throughout. So the support's at the top of this. A good way to explain it is I want my suspension to feel like soft off the top and then more support and resistance to travel as we go through and as I create more force down through the travel. These, especially the Rune, this isn't as extreme as the Rune. This is a better suspension platform to play with. They kind of go supportive and then they fall off a little bit at the end. So you've got to backwards your spring setup or on an air shock, run it soft with some tokens and get that support down the bottom without going so extreme that it ends up woody, which is quite often what happens when you set a bike up like that. You get that woody feeling. But it's killer. It is a killer shock. So I'm running it in no high-speed compression. Every time I go to wind that high-speed compression on, I'm thinking, maybe I can soften the spring up a little bit more, use a bit more compression, blah, blah, blah. Every time I add it, it's just harsh underfoot. Harsh as hell. Like just bang, bang. The hits go from to boop, 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 boop. Like you're catching every hit. So no high-speed compression, and I'm on 2 clicks of low-speed compression. So right in the middle of their settings, they're 0 point. So you got -2, which, full minus is 0 to me. So 0, 1, 2 with a possible of 4 clicks. That's killer. Heaps of room on the rebound stroke. I've got it fast, but not too fast. Slow it down a bit on a fast trail, and it's just conk, conk, conk. You're packing, and then you're catching the second and third hit deeper in the travel than you should be. So fast rebound feels good. This thing's got plenty of range with that rebound. So very, very impressed. I know I've already reviewed that shock, but just giving it more love because it is killer. The frame itself, like I said, with the leverage rate and then the ratio, it just starts too high in the leverage rate. But I make it work. This thing I've been doing shuttles all day. I've been doing shuttles all day with my crew, and this thing was hitting. I'm back up to pretty close to my pace. Like I really haven't been riding fast for a while. I've gone back to a token in the fork, just to take a little bit of that edge off the top and still have momentum. So a little softer off the top, still momentum, and just getting used to having that little bit of a hollow spot at the top, which is fine. The fork feels great. Definitely due for a service. Absolutely due for a service. It's a year old. I've done a couple of lower legs and air spring services over that year, but absolutely due for an air spring service and a full service. A damp service would be great. I bought a set of Nukeproof bars and stem, and I put them on. A little bit harsh on the hands. So I went back to the tag metals and the standard giant stem and back to nice control and I guess a little bit of flex there as well. So not huge on that Nukeproof bar, I don't think. But if you're a bit heavier, it's probably what you're looking for. It's nice and strong. It's a 31.8 diameter as well, I believe, and not a 35. Hence why I had to run the stem. Tyres. So now in Australia, we finally have access to the DH casing, DHR2 in a Max Terra. It's got an E50 written on it, so like e-bike. It's 50A on the top and 45A on the corners, I believe. Way better DHR2 for the rear. It's the DHR2 that should have always been built in a downhill casing for the rear. Max Terra for the rear, Max Grip for the front. I'm still waiting for Maxis, so if any of you guys are reps for Maxis or whatever, hit them up and start putting pressure on them to get this Aggressor made in a downhill casing. Some of you might disagree with that, like Aggressor, whatever, but for me, this tyre is killer. I love this Aggressor. It's so controlled, so predictable and reliable. It never does anything funny ever. And they last forever. They last for a long, long time. They get chewed to pieces. But if it was a downhill casing, I don't think I'd have to worry about flatting them like I do now. I don't really flat them, but like I've retired more of them than I've flatted in the double down. But the double down casing is not quite strong enough for the oopsie daisy moments and the oh shit moments where you just oh shit, I'm hucking into a rock and you explode your wheel, or explode your tire, your rim as well, on stuff like that. Downhill casing would be a bit better. I run a Cushcore anyway, so that's probably why I don't flat many of them. Maybe partially why I don't flat any of them, but many of them. But yeah, the DH casing is available now. It's only available in 29er. I've running this as a mullet. I'm also running it mullet in the mid position. So the low position is purely 29er. The mid position is kind of 29er or mullet, but it's dumped on its guts as a mullet. But that is where it rides best and the suspension platform feels best at that mid. So in mullet, in the high position, it's a little tall, which I can kind of deal with, but I can't deal with the odd suspension feel that I get from there. So it's different. It's only, tiny little differences in kinematics, but it does make a difference. So I actually also believe that in the low position, 29er has the best suspension platform. Low position 29er, best suspension platform. But I don't like the 29ers. I just don't like it. Maybe I'll put the 29er back on, go low now that I've got this shock dialed, and just fine tune, because I have to change the spring rate ever so slightly when I go to the high position in mullet as well. It's just a little bit, the kinematics are just a little bit different in the flip chips. So if I didn't ever do a 29er on it again, I'd be happy. I love this bike. It's killer. It's not going to be my forever bike because of that leverage rate and whatever. I've had to work too hard to make this suspension work here. So it's not going to be as easy to adapt to. You go somewhere where it's super fast, big hits, stuff we don't really have here in Adelaide. A little bit hard to adapt to stuff like that. Still can be done. It's just a little bit more fiddly. So I really I'm going to look into the transition a bit more. The new transition patrol. I think maybe that would be a hitter. Simple horse link design, just no nonsense. Good progression, 25%-ish progression. I just need to check out that rate, that starting rate. So, but this bike's killer. It's fun. I'm having a lot of fun on it again. I'm riding again, which is sweet. It took me quite a while after Sev died. To be honest, it took me quite a while to kind of find myself and work out what I wanted to do and where I don't know, just like a hole. Feels like I had to fill a hole for a little while there and just grieve, I guess. Like it was a pretty big part of life, and I still haven't had I really wanted to make a farewell video with all the footage from Sev for the years and years, and I just still haven't been able to make that. So maybe in the future that'll come out, but for now I'm back on the pace. I'm back on the a bit of momentum in the right direction and on a killer bike. So I'll get this fork serviced and we'll just keep hitting. The XT derailleur has been good. It's bashed to smithereens. It's this original one that came on it, but still shifts. I think I'm a Shimano guy. Shimano brakes, Shimano drivetrain. They're both just killer. SRAM, you end up getting slappy as clutches. This you can just keep adjusting your clutch if it gets slappy. The brakes, my back brake wonders a little bit because it leaks a little bit out the back here. But the front doesn't wander at all. They're good brakes and they're heaps strong. Gaufa pads front and back. Sorry, no. I think I've still got the OGs in the back. Still got Shimano in the back, but I've got a Gaufa set in the front, which are quite good. But the Shimano standard pads are killer in sintered. This is metal. That's it for now. Fork's great, needs a service. Shock is... There's not a better coil shock on the market. There is absolutely not. There's not. I've done the Olands. I've done the Cane Creek. I haven't done a review on EXT, but I've ridden 2 of them. Didn't like either of them. They got too much top out. Really small window of adjustment with their rebound as well. Oh, you get it custom tuned to the bike. The push 11.6 didn't like that either. Too heavy and sharp edges to cut your knees on. This is the best shock on the market. The only thing that would make it better, which I don't know if they can do because of their bodies, is make it suitable for a bit of a lighter spring. But doesn't matter at all. It doesn't matter. People go, oh, but you lose pop with a coil versus an air shock. No, you don't. You just set it up to have pop or not to have pop. And you set your air shock up to have pop or not to have pop. You know, an air shock generally comes from the factory on most bikes too progressive. Chunked full of tokens, bouncing off of everything, really launching. And then the coil shock comes as a coil. So it's always, pretty much a supple setup unless you're oversprung. If you're oversprung, it'll be bouncy and harsh and horrible. And if you're undersprung, it'll be soupy and like super soft and whatever. Yeah, I don't know where I was going with that, but this is the best shock on the market. Absolutely. It's enough jibber jabber for now. We'll keep it moving and talk to you again soon.